Welcome back. This is our final talk for the day. We do have some closing words, so please stick around for after the end of the talk to just hear some final announcements. I would love to introduce our last talk, like I said. So Pamela Napier, might have seen her earlier today, but she had another presentation with her design research partner who's in Ireland. So you might want to hang out to hear a lovely Irish accent from Gwen Lettis. And they are going to speak to you about some decentralized education techniques from a design research practice. So I hope you enjoy and see you after this talk.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pamela Napier. I'm an associate professor at the Herron School of Art and Design at IUPUI. I was so excited when I was asked to speak at this year's Indie Design Week. So today for this talk, I'm going to be doing a talk in collaboration with my friend and colleague Gwen, who is sending her video all the way from Cork, Ireland. And so today we're going to be talking about designing from the core, which, our subtitle is Personal Value Thinking and Sustainability in Design Education. So how we're going to do this is my little intro, and then Gwen's going to come in and talk a little bit about the background of her PhD research that she's been working on for the past 5 years. And then I'm going to come in and talk a little bit about how her work and the process that she's been developing has been carried out in an online course that I'm teaching this spring semester at Herron. So I hope you enjoy our talk. I'm going to pass it over to Gwen now.
Hi everybody, sorry I can't be with you live today. I'm going to give you a summary of my PhD research, which I've been working on for the last 5 years. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so I've created a process of core thinking and doing for graphic.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Gwen. So I'm going to talk a bit about how I was able to carry out Gwen's research in an online lab that I'm teaching this semester at Herron. So we titled the course Designing from the Core. And what the course is, it's an asynchronous online course, which means that we don't have any meetings in person, we don't meet over Zoom, everything is entirely on our Canvas platform, so posting assignment modules and having students upload assignments and discussion boards. So it's a 7-week lab, and it's a mix of juniors and seniors, so 3rd and 4th year students. And so this is a bit what the structure looks like. And I have this plus reflection because within every module that the students do, they have some kind of reflection assignment to do. So either they're writing in their journal or they are posting to a discussion board. So week 1, we focused mainly on reading, so doing a little bit of background. And I'm going to go through each of these in a little more detail. So then week 2, the students developed their values and goal statements. In week 3, they started to create mood boards, and we did an activity around exploring impact. So looking at these 4 streams of sustainability as put forward by the AIGA's Living Principles. And then in week 4, they developed some kind of visualization, so loosely a poster, but it was in a digital format. Week 5 was focused on reflection. And then week 6 and 7, so at the time of this recording, we're just now getting into week 6. So right now we're going to be looking at process, practice, skills, and commitments. And then in week 7, there's going to be visualization and reflection. So in week 1, we focused on a series of readings. So some of them were a bit heavy, but we got some really good feedback from students. So there was a paper from Visible Language journal that we gave them called Learn from the Core, Design from the Core. We also gave them a paper that Gwen and myself and a few other colleagues published in Message 4, which is another design journal. That was all about Gwen and I's research and how she carried it out through multiple cycles. And then we also sent them to the AIGA Design Futures website. And so they had to read through every single category of design futures that was put forward. So I think there was like 8 total that they had to read. And then we also sent them to the Living Principles of Design by AIGA so that they could get a sense of the 4 streams of sustainability that we're talking about and how we're defining those. And then, so this is just an example. I'm not going to show this slide after every week module, but this is what their reflection posts look like. So you can see on our Canvas site, they have a discussion board that they get like 5 points for posting a comment. And then students would write a reflection on, whatever the activity was that week. And so this one was all about the readings and what they thought of them, what their key takeaways were, their initial impressions. So that was kind of typically how the reflection would work. So then in week 2, they were focused on values and goal statements, but this is the values piece. And so through Gwen's research and looking into personal value thinking and pulling from psychology, she had developed some really fantastic tools to enable students to think about their own personal values. And so one of those tools was a value questionnaire. So essentially they would go through and rank some of these statements like, it is important to me to form my values independently. It is important to me that my country is secure and stable. So they would go through this whole series. I think there were like 30 or 40 of them, and they would rank them. And what the Excel spreadsheet did was it started to tabulate them and show them what their highest ranking values were. So you can see here, if it was a lower ranking value, it would be in the red. And if it was a higher ranking value, it would be in the, 5, 6 area. And then in combination with that, once they went through the questionnaire, then they started to look at what we call this value thesaurus. And so Gwen pulled this in, from another resource, but really started to help students think about their values into like simple adjectives that they could use to think about goals that they were going to be developing, and really starting to think through what they meant. So some of the adjectives around, self-direction, stimulation. So this really helps them kind of pair the two together when they were thinking about their values. So once they went through their values, there was this really fun activity that was called the eulogy exercise. So these are some worksheets that Gwen had developed that she used with her students overseas. And so with this being an online course, I provided these for the students, but then they could, sketch or write in their own journal. They could upload a photo. They could work in whatever format was easiest and most comfortable for them. And so the eulogy exercise made them start to think through, okay, so if it was your funeral and you had all these people gathering at your funeral, what are the kinds of things that they would say about you? What are you going to be known for? What are they going to remember you for? And so some of the prompts were getting them to think about what they did in their life, how they might have made the world a better place, the types of words that people would use to describe them. So I didn't have them turn this in. It was just, this reflective exercise for them to do. So once they had that, it allowed them to start to diverge and create this long list of items, right? And so once they had those items, then the next step was to transfer them over to this goal list. So this worksheet here starts to look at having them list their goals. So they kind of looked back to the eulogy exercise sheet and pulled things from that and then started to categorize them. So their personal goals versus their, potential design goals. And, we let them know too that they could be the same, like the same goal that you might have, that's a personal goal could also be a goal that is for themselves as a designer. So they had to list their goals, and then they had to highlight like the top 3 to 5 goals in each category that were most important to them. So then the next step, still in week 2, was focusing on developing goal statements. And so a goal statement, we gave them the prompt, as a designer, I will, and they had to fill in this blank with something that they hope to achieve by, and then the way they go about it. So for example, one of the students said, I will be emotional by respecting people's opinions, beliefs, and views. This student down here said, as a designer, I will impact culture by being skilled and creative. So you can see here, again, in any format they chose, some of them decided to write it in their journals. We also gave them a worksheet that helps them kind of think through. So once they diverged on several different goal statements, we had them select one to move forward with throughout the rest of the class. So you can see here this example of them highlighting the goal that they wanted to work with for the rest of the class. So then we move into week 3, which was about mood boards and exploring impact. So what the students had to do was start to visualize their goal statement. So with their selected goal statement, what might that look like visually? What kind of imagery could they start to collect and think about? So this is, I have 3 different student examples here of the mood boards that they created. So they put their goal statement within their mood board and they started to collect visual imagery and inspiration for the next step, which was going to be creating some kind of visual of their goal statement. And then the second part of this week was looking at exploring impact. So this is where we had the students refer back to the AIGA living principles and the 4 streams of sustainability. So society, culture, economy, and environment. And what I did with this being an online course, I think typically if we would have been in person, we would have been up on the whiteboards and we would have been working with sticky notes and we would have had them get in groups and so they could see how everybody is thinking about their work. But instead, with it being an online course, we used Google Jamboard, which I think, that with the free version that we had, we tried to replicate, what a studio experience might be like. So they had to respond to the prompt, how does, and then insert their design goal by being, and then their value adjective, benefit society, culture, economy, and the environment. So they first had to place their goal statement within the Jamboard, and then they had to look at each of the 4 streams of sustainability and think about how does this goal have some kind of benefit to each of these streams. So here you can see an example of where they were putting things in the environment stream. So if they thought about their goal statement, one student said, be aware of the fans' environment when you make stuff. Staying curious and open-minded so that I am mindful of my place in the world and the impact I have while being an artist. And so you can see over here, I have, the 3 other pages of the Jamboard that students populated and were able to see each other's work. So then in week 4, that was all about visualization. So how do they visualize their selected goal statement, given what they did with their mood board and what they began to explore in terms of impact? And so these are 3 student examples that I have here that I thought turned out really well. So they had to use their goal statement and they had to not just use digital tools. So I placed an emphasis on hand making, bringing in some kind of handmade element. And so I thought these 3 examples were really great. So as a designer, I will give back by designing with sustainability in mind. As a designer, I will own a successful small business by being unconventional and true to myself. So these are 3 really great student examples of how they carried out the visualization activity. Okay. So this actually says week 5, we'll be moving into week 6. Week 5, I gave them a bit of a break. So I had them take some time to rest. We don't have a spring break at Herron this semester. And we had like 2 wellness days where students didn't have any class. But so I built in time for them to essentially rest and reflect during the semester. So after they spent that whole last week creating their visualization, I told them to just, kind of spend some time doing some internal reflecting and thinking about their own process. And this was to prepare them for the upcoming weeks and the activities that they would be doing. And so I don't have any student work to show because we're moving into that week now. But part of this process and part of what Gwen had developed and built on with my initial research was looking at design process and professional practice and really understanding the types of skills and activities that happen throughout, a designer's creative process. And then additionally, the kinds of things that they might do within their own professional practice. And so being able to tie all of those together. So you can see in these visuals here, these are the worksheets and the visuals that Gwen used in her course. So this is the design process that she uses at her institution. We're going to be using Herron's design process model for our undergraduates. And then there's this professional practice model, which Gwen synthesized from the AIGA Professional Practices in Graphic Design book. So they have these 2 visuals to think about. And this is an example of showing how students can start to think through the types of activities and things that they do throughout their process. And then additionally, the types of work that they might go into and how they can think about the skills that they need to have and the actions that they take throughout their professional practice. And then how their overall values and goals are going to feed into this. So that's the hope, that when we get to this next week here, they're going to be looking at their process and the types of things they do in their process. They're going to be looking at their professional practice and the kinds of things that might happen. And then the prompt is to enable them to think about how they might make some commitments to the kind of work that they want to do. So these are some worksheets that Gwen developed that takes them through this, almost 5 to 7 step process, where they start with writing their goal statement. And then they start to write down actions that relate most to their goal. So thinking about their goal and their value. So thinking about, I will do this by being this way. The next step then takes them through what results in completing actions that they want to do by using their value. How can it relate to their goal? So they might say, that I'm going to do this certain thing by being this certain way, and it's going to have this kind of impact. So the next step then takes them through which of the actions that they need to take are going to be most valuable to them, and have the most value in progressing them to their goals as a practitioner when they get out of school. So then once they have that, they start to write commitments and saying, as a designer, I will do this by being this. So an example might be, I want to be, very trustworthy. And so I will be trustworthy as a designer by being empathetic and by having very honest conversations with my clients or partners. So they go through and they start to diverge on a list of commitments that they might have. And then they follow up with writing their goal statement as well. So it kind of comes around full circle. And within my class, what I'm thinking about doing, and this is a new thing, because the final end product or end deliverable can vary depending on, who's running the course. Gwen has tried a lot of different approaches where students have created visual identities, where they've created, their designer CV. And so what I'm thinking about having them do is combine and synthesize their process, their practice, their skills, their commitments, and think about the impact on the 4 streams of sustainability, and create a new process for themselves that really starts to highlight, these are the things that I do in each phase of my process. These are the kinds of actions and things that I want to do as a practitioner, and here's how my values fold into that. And then, of course, there's going to be a component of reflection, as there has been after every module. So I'm really looking forward to see how it turns out. The students have been really receptive and given us fantastic feedback so far. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what they develop at the end of this course. So thank you so much for having both of us. This idea of sustainability, responsible design, thinking about design education is very near and dear to Gwen and I, and we've been working in this area of research for several years now. So since we can't be with you in person, if you have any questions at all, our email addresses are right on this slide, so please feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from anybody, ask and answer any questions that you might have, and share any materials that you might be interested in. So thank you so much for having us be a part of this wonderful design week. And hopefully we will see some of you all soon. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
Oh, hey guys, how's it going? We are the Normies. I am Chris.
Me, Patrick.
All right, so happy end of the day. Congratulations, you did swell. We were watching and I just assumed that you're doing swell. Keep in mind that it is Earth Day, so go out there, be nice to the planet, pick up a little bit of trash. If you're interested, there is an Art and Seek. You can go to visitindy.com to learn more about this Art and Seek, where you can try to figure out if you have any cool art installations next to where you're currently at.
Yes. Happy Earth Day, humans. Remember, also, Keep Indie Beautiful is having a lot of events today, so check that out. It is kibi.org. We do a lot of awesome Earth Day events to celebrate this awesome planet we live in.
I do like congratulate hello people.
I like hello humans.
Hello humans. My bad. Yeah, hello humans.
Humans is nice.
Yeah,
Humans.
Pat.
I just want to remind you guys that tomorrow at the networking space, there are going to be jobs to fill. So if you want to get hired and get a dream job, make sure you show up at 9 o'clock tomorrow so you can land your dream job and put yourself out there.
Yeah, and with that being said, fellow humans, we will see you tomorrow.
Fellow humans,
Bye.
bye.